We are building the top terms project from the YByte Python curriculum available at www.ybyte.in. Previously, we saw how we've built a function called determine winner, which is useful for us because it tells us who has won a particular round. Now it's time for us to call that function. In fact, it's quite simple because all we need to do is that once we know, the keys has been selected, once the values are available, I can just figure out if I want to call this function in the default mode, which is the larger is better, or if I want to call this function as, let's say, in the non-default mode, right? So I will just go about doing that. Remember, I will call this in a default mode for example, height, floors, and say built up area, because for height, bigger is better, floors, higher the better, and also built up area, higher the better. So I just go write, look, if chosen key is, let's say, in let's say so my chosen key, remember, is coming from the mapping dictionary and it's single character, so I can just write is part of, let's say, this list. So H, F, and say B. So if it's one of this list, it's available, it's, let's say, a part of this list, well, in that case, larger the better. I can call this function, so I just say winner. Remember, winner will be a string because that's what my let's say my function will provide. Winner will be given by determine winner. I must convert these to floats because otherwise I'll end up comparing strings, and that's not what I want, right? So I'll convert these to floats. I just go and say, well, float, for example, say value player. Remember, the first one has to be the player, and then the second one has to be, let's say, the computer, right? So I pass both of these. In this case, I don't need to pass any default argument because by default it is set up as 1. My order is 1. On the other hand, let's say, here chosen, if the key happens to be something else, well, in that case, I'll do the same exact thing, but I will call the function with, let's say, a default argument of 0. Now we could have done this differently. We could have computed the value of this default argument depending on the chosen key and just called the function once, but effectively the idea is the same, right? So now, depending on which key I've chosen, I will get a winner. Let's just see this working. So I just say print, for example, let's say, let's say winner is, and then put a winner. Now, when I run this piece of code, so, let me, so I've got Burj Khalifa. Well, clearly I'm going to choose H because that is bound to make me a winner. When I do that, higher the better. Well, computer height was, say, 1667. Burj Khalifa is the tallest building in the world as of today. 2717, 6167. Clearly, winner is the player. Now, let's say I choose some other metric. In fact, perhaps for this one, I can try to choose the year built. So I will choose, let's say, a Y. It turns out that year built for me was 1991. For the player, for the computer, it turns out to be 2010. Remember, for the year built, it's lower the better. I've called the function with the default, with the overriding of the order argument to 0. Hence, I get winner is the player. And you can see it quite clearly over here. Winner depends on the metric that's being sent, and we are implementing that using, let's say, the same function but with different arguments. I hope this is clear. Again, I hope this activity has been interesting for you. This video was useful for you. If this way of learning programming by building activities is something that you think you'll enjoy, look at our website ybyte.in because that is how we learn Python programming. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.